Actually, Biden's State of the Union tomorrow night, simple question I have is, are you better off than you were a year ago? Or are you better off than you were 2 years ago? I think it's a question we're going to keep asking. Anyway, beginning that, joining me now, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, chair of the House Judiciary Committee and just chair of the House Republicans. Mr. Jordan, welcome back. Do you think people...
Good to be with you.
I know Biden's crowing about a jobs number last week, but do you think people... We have a poll that shows financial distress by something like 41% of the population. You think people feel better, Jim Jordan, than they did 1 year ago or 2 years ago under Mr. Biden?
Well, certainly not better than they did 2 years ago when you were in the White House and President Trump was running things. Wrong track numbers are as high as they've been in I don't know how long. So they certainly don't feel better than they did then. Look, we got a border that's not a border. We got record crime. We got record inflation. We got bad energy policy. So, go figure. Now, there were some decent economic numbers here recently on job creation. That's fine. I always cheer for the American economy. But I would argue that's happening in spite of the stupid policies from this administration, not because of. And that's a testimony to Americans, to small business owners, to job creators, to the ingenuity and the work ethic of the American people. But yeah, I think overall, most Americans think like, wow, this is not what we had, what we hope would happen in our great country, and certainly much different than what we had under the previous administration.
Jim Jordan, late last week, Mr. Biden blamed the inflation on Mr. Trump. It was quite remarkable. He said, I inherited high inflation. Wasn't my problem, wasn't my mistake. I inherited that. So, of course, millions of people went and fact-checked it. It was completely untrue. Actually, Trump's last CPI number was 1.4%. But I'm just saying, has he get away with that? Will Biden get away with that if he repeats that in the State of the Union?
No, the American people are smart. I mean, I assume he's going to give a pretty decent speech tomorrow night. I always say this is as close to pageantry as we get in our great country. We don't have a monarchy or anything, so this is as close as we get. It's a wonderful, I think, event for our country. So I assume he'll do okay with his speech. But the country gets the facts. They know that everything costs more. They know that energy costs more. They know that there is no longer a border. The border is not a border now. So they get all those fundamentals. They get what this administration does. And as John Ratcliffe and you just in your previous exchange pointed out, they get that this guy projects weakness from the Oval Office. So the country understands all that. So I don't think he'll get away with the things he's saying. And again, that's why, unfortunately, we see these wrong track numbers, at levels we've never really seen before in our country.
I mean, let's go to the border for a moment. We're going to talk more about it later in the show. I don't know that he'll even mention the border. Until recently, he never went down to the border. But the border and the illegals, it's become a major disruption throughout America. I mean, it's like New York City is a border state now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, the mayor of New York, finally, Eric Adams, has figured out that this is a big problem for him in New York. And so he's crying out for some changes and lots of money. Do you think, what's Biden going to say about immigration? Because, Jim Jordan, when I ask you that question, are people better off? It's not only actual reality, although that's a big part of it, it's how they think they're doing.
Yep. No, a good point. I don't know if he'll mention it or not. He'll probably say it was time for a bipartisan solution to the problem that they created intentionally, as if, they controlled all the government, the House, the Senate, and the White House for 2 years, but now they want to work with Republicans. Makes no sense to me. Last week we had a hearing, Larry, where we pointed out why it matters. We had a dad who lost his son to fentanyl come and talk about the heartache his family's had to endure and live with because of this problem on our border and how that has impacted so many families across the country in all the states. Then we heard from a law enforcement official, 38 years, a county sheriff, 38 years in law enforcement. He said 2 years ago, the border was the best and most manageable it's ever been. Today, it's the worst and that it's ever been. That all changed in 2 years. This is after 38 years of experience. He talked about the crime, the damage to property, the cost to schools, the cost to hospitals. All that is now coming across the whole country because we have these, 5 million people coming into the country in the last 2 years. So I think the real key questions here are, how did it happen? Why it matters, and we had that in our last hearing, and then how do we fix it? And that first one is, how did this happen? Day one, Joe Biden said, we're not going to build the wall anymore, we're not going to have remain in Mexico, and we're not going to deport. And everyone came. And then how we fix it is to put back in place the policies that were working in the previous administration. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to have legislation come out of the Judiciary Committee that we think will pass the House and then we'll see what Chuck Schumer in the Senate does.
And then there's this issue of the debt, some $5 trillion in new debt added on in 2 years under Biden. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that President Biden will announce in the State of the Union that he will go on a second date with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy? You know, maybe hit a local diner or a drive-in movie, or somehow get together and talk about this problem we seem to have about excessive spending and debt creation and inflation. Can you see them going out again together?
I do, especially after what happened last Wednesday. Remember, go back 7 weeks ago, they passed that crazy bill, the $1.7 trillion spending monstrosity. And then a few weeks ago, Karine Jean-Pierre said at the White House, the White House will not negotiate with House Republicans. Well, they sure changed their mind, because last Wednesday they started a negotiation when the president and Speaker McCarthy sat down to talk about the debt ceiling. So I do think they'll meet again. And we've got to understand, with record spending, record inflation, record debt, we have to get some structural reform on that debt ceiling increase that's coming. We have to get that, and frankly, some savings as well. And House Republicans will be fighting to do those two things, because we know that is good for the country.
Well, the alternative vision, I mean, look, you can give a guy a phone number, but that doesn't mean he's going to call you back. I got to see Biden at the State of the Union, Jim Jordan. I mean, he might just blast the Republicans, say, I want a clean debt bill, that's all. Don't give me any of this crazy stuff that you've been talking about, like the IRS and so forth. I mean, that could be vintage Biden, no reset, just a lot of insults.
And he may do that, but again, I trust the American people. The American people know that there's been record spending. They know we have record levels of inflation, and they know we now have a record level of debt. So you can't keep doing the same old, and change that. So you have to negotiate with House Republicans. After all, they put us in the majority just a few months ago. I think that will happen. And I would say this, regardless of how bad and how crazy the things Biden says, I think the country figures it out and understands what's at stake.
I hope you're right. I truly hope you're right. Congressman Jim Jordan, thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. All right, folks.